Blessing didn't feel like herself anymore. It came like a whisper that turned into a scream, a strange itch, then a rotting smell that clung to her skirts no matter how hard she scrubbed. By afternoon, a spear of pain stabbed low in her belly, making her fold over her desk and press her palm there like she could hold herself together. She went to the campus clinic because that was what sensible girls did. The nurse, yawning behind tired eyes, handed her antibiotics and a plastic cup of water without looking up from a chart. "You'll be fine," the woman said, as if the words could be stitched onto Blessing's skin. 2 days became 7, 7 became 14. She washed and washed, she prayed and prayed, but her underwear stayed damp with a thick blackish fluid that scared her more than the pain. She stopped sitting near people in class. She stopped lingering in the hostel corridor, where girls laughed about wigs and weekend plans. She learned how to walk with her thighs pressed tight as if she could stop a river. On the 15th night, the heat was merciless. The hostel generator throbbed and coughed. Blessing slipped into the bathroom, clutching a wrapper around her waist. The fluorescent bulb buzzed. She sat on the cold plastic seat, heart pounding, and then the pain came again, sharper, like a knife scraped against stone. Her breath hitched. She looked down between her knees and she screamed. Tiny white things wriggled slick with the black fluid, alive and moving where life had no business. Maggots. They crawled on her skin, blasphemy in motion, squirming like wicked secrets finally set free. Blessing slapped at them with shaking hands, gagging as bile rose in her throat. The wrapper fell. The bucket toppled. Water splashed her legs and scattered the crawling things into shining islands. A door slammed. Footsteps rushed. "Who is there?" someone shouted. Blessing could not answer. She grabbed the bucket, filled it, and poured over and over, until the drain swallowed the last pale wriggle, and the floor was clean enough to deny the truth. Then she slid down the wall, shaking, and pressed her forehead against her knees. She cried without sound, because sound would make it real. Minutes later, hours, she stumbled back to her room. Vanessa looked up from her phone, brows knitting. "Why you dey shake like leaf?" Blessing shook her head. "Stomach," she whispered. She wanted to tell, to pour out the crawling horror, but the words stuck like thorns. She wrapped herself in her bedsheet and stared into the dark until dawn peeled the night away. "This is not ordinary," she whispered to the room, to the buzzing fan, to whatever listened. Her mind flashed to a night she tried not to remember, to a black Jeep, a hotel room, and a voice that said, "You'll be fine." She swallowed hard. You won't believe what the billionaire she slept with did to her after one night. But Blessing would. Her body already knew. The night swallowed her breath. The sun was already punishing the city by 10 a.m., pressing down on roofs and bare heads like it had a grudge. Inside the lecture hall, the ceiling fans whirred lazily, moving more dust than air. Blessing sat at the far back, her elbows on the desk, fanning herself with the corner of her exercise book. Her eyes were dull, lips dry, stomach tight from hunger. She hadn't eaten since yesterday evening, and even that had been nothing more than Gary soaked in water without sugar. The lecturer's voice droned on about something in economics, but Blessing's mind wasn't here. It was in a small hospital ward 3 states away, where her mother, Mima, lay coughing blood into a white basin that was no longer white. The image had burned itself into her mother's weak hand covering her mouth, her chest heaving with each cough, her eyes trying to smile even as they filled with pain. The bill was 70,000 naira. Blessing's account balance, 2,300. She had already sold her extra shoes, her wristwatch, and even the bag her uncle had given her last Christmas. Nothing moved the figure higher. Her pen slipped from her fingers and rolled off the desk. She didn't bother picking it up. Outside, the heat shimmered in waves against the dusty field. Somewhere in the middle row, girls giggled at a phone screen, their hair smelling of fresh hair dye and expensive shampoo. When the class finally ended, she packed her books slowly, like her limbs had stones tied to them. The corridor was noisy, but every sound felt far away. She started the walk back to her hostel, dragging her feet through the campus pathways shaded by old mango trees. Her slippers slapped against the cement with each tired step. When she reached her door, she hesitated for a moment, hand on the knob. Inside, Vanessa's voice spilled into the corridor, bright, high-pitched, and full of laughter. Blessing pushed the door open. Vanessa sat cross-legged on the bed, painting her nails a bold shade of red, a phone pressed between her ear and shoulder. A whiff of her perfume filled the room, sweet, expensive, the kind that stayed in the air even after the person left. "Hey, girl," Vanessa said, ending her call and flashing a perfect smile. "You look like you want faint. You never chopped today?" Blessing shook her head, placing her books on the table. "No money." Vanessa's eyes softened for a moment. She set the nail polish aside and stood up. "Look, Blessing, you can't continue like this. Your mama is sick. You dey suffer, yet you still dey form, good girl. Let me help you." Blessing frowned. "Help me how?" Vanessa grinned, leaning closer as if sharing a secret. "I get one man, very clean, very rich, and very generous. He no dey ask for nonsense. Just likes respectful, clean girls. One night with him and your mama go fit do the surgery and even buy drugs for a year." Blessing's heart jumped. One night? She thought of her mother coughing into that stained basin. She didn't know it yet, but this was the moment her life began to turn toward the shadows. Blessing stared at Vanessa, unsure if she had heard correctly. "One night?" she repeated slowly, her voice almost a whisper. Vanessa nodded, lips curling into a confident smile. "Yes, one night. You go meet AM, spend a few hours. He'll give you money. Good money. Enough to fix your mother's situation and even keep something for yourself." Blessing's stomach twisted. "Vanessa, I've never—" "I beg, don't start," Vanessa interrupted, waving a dismissive hand. "This man is different. He's not those rough street guys. He's a gentleman, clean, rich. He no go force you do anything you no want." She sat back on the bed, picking up her phone again, but keeping her eyes on Blessing. "Think about your mother. Think about those bills." The words dug into Blessing's chest. She wanted to say no, to keep her dignity, but the image of her mother's weak smile and the sound of her cough echoed too loudly in her head. Vanessa leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Do you want your mama to die because you deform holy? This is life, Blessing. Sometimes you need to do what you must." Blessing swallowed hard. The room suddenly felt smaller, warmer, as if the walls were pressing against her. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the floor. "How much?" she asked finally, her voice barely audible. Vanessa's smile widened, sensing the crack in her resolve. "Enough to cover everything. At least 500,000. Blessing's eyes widened. That was more than enough for the surgery, the medicine, and even food for months. She could see her mother healed, laughing again, cooking in their small kitchen back home. But then another thought crept in, her father's voice from long ago telling her, "Your body is the one thing you never sell. Once you give it away for money, you can't buy it back." She bit her lip. "I'll think about it," she said, standing abruptly. Vanessa rolled her eyes. "Don't think too long. This kind of chance no day come twice." That night, Blessing sat alone in the hostel bathroom, staring at her reflection in the cracked mirror. Her eyes were puffy from crying, her lips trembling. She splashed cold water on her face, trying to wash away the shame she already felt, just for considering it. But her mother's cough, the sight of that blood, the smell of antiseptic in the hospital, all of it weighed heavier than her pride. When she finally returned to the room, Vanessa was scrolling through her phone. Blessing walked over, her voice steady this time. "I'll do it," she said. "Just once." Vanessa's grin was quick and victorious. "Good girl. Tomorrow night, 10:30 p.m. Be ready." Blessing turned away, clutching her towel tighter. She repeated the words in her head, just once, like a promise. But deep inside, Something small and frightened whispered that there's no such thing as just once. The next night, the air outside was thick with the smell of rain that hadn't yet fallen. Blessing sat on the edge of her bed, her hands trembling as she zipped up the simple black gown Vanessa had given her. The fabric clung to her body in a way she wasn't used to. A small tube of red lipstick rolled across the bedspread. Vanessa had insisted she wear it. "Relax," Vanessa said from the mirror where she was fixing her wig. "You look beautiful. The man will like you." Blessing stared at her reflection. She barely recognized the girl in the glass. The red lips, the smooth skin, the dark gown hugging her frame. It was like looking at a stranger. She swallowed hard, whispering under her breath. Just one night. At exactly 10:30 p.m., a black Jeep rolled up outside the hostel gate, its headlights cutting through the darkness. The security man waved it through without question. Blessing felt her heartbeat thud in her ears. Vanessa took her by the arm, pressing a small handbag into her hands. "Don't overthink it. Just smile and be polite." The Jeep door swung open. The man inside was dark-skinned, clean-shaven, and wore a gold wristwatch that caught the light from the street lamp, scattering tiny sparks across the seats. His cologne filled the air, rich and sharp. He smiled, revealing even white teeth. "You're more beautiful than she said," he said in a deep voice. Blessing managed a small nod, her throat too tight to speak. The door shut, sealing her in. The engine hummed as they drove through streets that grew quieter the farther they went. They arrived at a quiet hotel on the outskirts of town, tall glass walls reflecting the moonlight. Inside, the lobby smelled faintly of lavender and leather. He booked a luxury suite on the top floor without hesitation. The elevator ride was silent except for the soft ding of each floor they passed. When they entered the room, Blessing's eyes darted over the polished wood furniture, the king-sized bed with crisp white sheets, and the soft glow from the bedside lamps. The man set his phone on the table, walked to the minibar and poured her a glass of orange juice. "Relax," he said, handing it to her. "I don't bite." Blessing hesitated, holding the cold glass in her hands. She didn't drink it. She placed it on the table. After that, the night blurred. She remembered his voice, deep and calm. She remembered the weight of his gold watch brushing her arm. She remembered the faint smell of something. Powdery, sweet, strange. Then nothing. When she opened her eyes, morning sunlight filtered through the curtains. The man was gone. On the table lay a thick brown envelope. She opened it, and 500,000 in crisp notes. Inside, a small note. "Take care of your mother. I'll reach out again if needed. M." Her hand shook as she held the money. Tears filled her eyes. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to smile. She had no idea that the real price had already been taken. The first month after that night felt like a blessing in itself. Blessing wasted no time. She took the money straight to the hospital, paid her mother's bill in full, and even left extra for medicine. Within weeks, her mother's cough began to ease. Blessing sent money home for food and new clothes. She walked around campus lighter, almost glowing, as if the world had given her a second chance. But in the fourth week, something shifted. It started as an itch, subtle at first, almost ignorable. She thought it was nothing, maybe a reaction to soap or heat. But the itch grew deeper, settling somewhere inside her where scratching couldn't reach. Then came the smell. It was faint at first, but within days, it clung to her clothes, a sour, rotten scent she couldn't wash away. Her stomach began to ache, a low, constant pain in her lower belly that made it hard to sit through lectures. She went to the campus clinic. The nurse glanced at her for barely a second, scribbled something on a piece of paper, and handed her a packet of antibiotics. "Take these. You'll be fine," the nurse said, waving her to the door. Blessing followed the instructions, but nothing changed. 2 weeks later, things got worse. Her underwear was always damp, but it wasn't urine. It was a thick, blackish fluid, sticky and foul-smelling. She started carrying tissue in her bag to clean herself every hour. Her confidence began to crumble. She avoided sitting close to people, afraid they might smell it. She stopped visiting friends. Her laughter disappeared. Then came the night she could never forget. It was late. The hostel corridors quiet except for the hum of the generator. Blessing hurried to the bathroom with a fresh wrapper tied tightly around her waist. She was halfway through when the pain hit. A stabbing, twisting agony in her womb that stole her breath. She doubled over, clutching the wall. And then she felt movement. Blessing froze. Slowly, she looked down between her legs, and her scream ripped through the empty corridor. They were there again. Maggots, small, white, wriggling things crawling from her body as if she were nothing more than a rotten fruit. She slapped at them in a panic, her breathing ragged. Tears blurred her vision. She grabbed a bucket, filled it with water, and poured until they washed away. Her hands shook so badly she almost dropped the bucket. By the time she made it back to her room, her legs were weak. Vanessa looked up from her phone, startled. What happened? Why you dey shake? Blessing stared at her, lips trembling. She wanted to tell her to spill everything, but instead she said, "Nothing. Just stomach pain." She lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, the smell of the black fluid still haunting her nose. Somewhere deep inside, a thought whispered, "This is not sickness. This is something else." The next morning, Blessing woke up with her pillow damp from tears she didn't remember shedding. Her body felt heavier than her bones could carry. She didn't go to class. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the floor, her mind looping back to the horror in the bathroom. By afternoon, she couldn't take it anymore. She had to tell someone. She found Vanessa in the room, lying on her bed scrolling through Instagram, earphones in. "Vanessa," Blessing said, her voice shaking. Vanessa pulled one earbud out, glancing over. "Wetin happen? You look like person we see ghost." Blessing stepped closer, her hands balled into fists. "You told me he was clean. You told me it was safe." Vanessa sat up slowly, frowning. "What are you talking about?" Blessing's voice cracked. "I went to the bathroom last night. I saw maggots crawling out of me." Vanessa's face went pale for a split second before she covered it with a forced laugh. "A beg that one no fit happen. Maybe an infection." "No," Blessing snapped, her voice rising. "I know what I saw. You lied to me, Vanessa. You said he was different." Vanessa avoided her eyes, biting her lip. That was when Blessing noticed. Her friend didn't look surprised. She looked guilty. "Vanessa," Blessing pressed, stepping closer. "You knew something. Tell me the truth." Silence stretched between them until Vanessa finally whispered, "I didn't know he still does that." Blessing's heart thudded painfully in her chest. "Still does what?" Vanessa's eyes darted around the room as if checking for invisible ears. Some girls who slept with him before, they went mad. Others bled until they died. "You're not the first." Blessing stumbled back as if the words had physically hit her. "You..." She swallowed, her throat tight. "You took me to him knowing this could happen?" "I thought he had changed." Vanessa's voice trembled. "It's been months since I heard anything bad. And he paid me extra to bring you that night. I needed the money, Blessing. I swear I didn't..." The sound of the slap rang through the room before Vanessa could finish. Blessing's palm stung, but she didn't care. "You sold me out for money," Blessing said, her voice low, shaking. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry." "Sorry won't give me back my life," Blessing hissed. She turned away, her breath coming in shallow bursts. In that moment, she knew whatever was wrong with her was far bigger than an illness. Something had been done to her. Something deliberate. Something evil. And the person she trusted most had handed her over to it. She sat back on her bed, trembling, as a single thought burned itself into her mind. I have to find out exactly what he did to me. The next morning, Blessing woke up feeling hollow. The pain in her belly was still there, dull but constant, and the memory of the maggots wouldn't leave her mind. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the floor, when Vanessa came in humming, her perfume filling the small room. Vanessa dropped her handbag on the bed and looked at Blessing. "You look worse than yesterday. You no even go class?" Blessing lifted her head slowly, her eyes red and tired. "Vanessa, you told me that man was clean." Vanessa's smile faltered. "What do you mean?" Blessing's voice shook as she spoke. "I've been itching, smelling, and last night," her throat tightened. "Maggots, Vanessa, maggots came out of me." For a moment, Vanessa's expression froze. Her eyes darted away as if avoiding something. Blessing saw it. Fear, not surprise. "You knew," Blessing whispered. "I didn't," Vanessa began, but Blessing cut her off, her voice rising. "You knew something was wrong with him." Vanessa bit her lip, her hands fidgeting with the edge of her blouse. "Blessing, listen. I didn't think he still does that." Blessing blinked, her heart pounding. "Still does what?" Vanessa looked around as if someone might be listening. Her voice dropped to a near whisper. "Some girls who slept with him before. They went mad. Others bled until they died. You're not the first." Blessing's breath caught in her throat. Her skin went cold. "And you still took me to him?" "I thought he'd changed." Vanessa's voice cracked. "It's been years since I heard anything. He paid me extra to bring you that night, but I swear I didn't know." The sound of the slap filled the room before Vanessa could finish. Blessing's palm stung, but she didn't care. Tears burned her eyes as she stepped back, her chest heaving. "You sold me out for money," Blessing said, her voice breaking. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry. Please, I'm sorry." But the words were empty, floating in the thick silence between them. Blessing turned away, her mind spinning. She thought of her mother, lying in a hospital bed, and of herself now trapped in something she couldn't even name. That night, lying in bed, she couldn't stop hearing Vanessa's words. Went mad, bled until they died. The room felt too small, the air too heavy. She kept seeing the man's face in her mind, that smile, that gold watch catching the light. She realized then that the money on her mother's hospital bill hadn't been a gift. It had been a trade, and the price was her body, maybe her life. When she finally fell asleep, it was to a dream of herself standing in the middle of a dark road, with no idea which way led back to safety, and knowing that someone was watching from the shadows. The following afternoon, Blessing could no longer pretend this was just an illness. The hospital tests had all come back normal, yet her body told a different story. Her belly still ached. The smell hadn't left. She hadn't slept in 2 days. It was her mother who finally pushed her to act. Over the phone, Mima's voice was soft but urgent. "Blessing, this is not ordinary. You need to see someone who can look beyond hospitals. Go to the woman I told you about, the prophetess in a Kuru village. She sees things others can't." Blessing didn't argue. She packed a small bag, slipped out of campus without telling Vanessa, and boarded an old rickety bus that rattled down the long road to the village. The prophetess's compound was at the edge of the forest, low mud walls, a thatched roof, and the smell of burning herbs drifting from the doorway. The air felt heavier here, as if every sound from the outside world stopped at the fence. Blessing stepped inside. The woman sat barefoot on a woven mat, dressed in a white wrapper. Her hair was covered, and her eyes were marked with white chalk. Beside her was a clay pot filled with water that rippled though there was no breeze. Before Blessing could speak, the woman lifted her head and said in a calm, heavy voice, "You carried a demon that night." Blessing froze. "What?" The prophetess's eyes locked on hers. "Your womb has been sold." The words landed like a hammer on her chest. Her knees wobbled and she dropped onto the mat. "I didn't know," she whispered, tears burning her eyes. "You don't need to tell me what happened," the prophetess continued. The man you slept with is part of a powerful cult. They trade the wombs of young women for riches and political power. The night you were with him, they collected your seed. Blessing's breath came in shallow bursts. The maggots. Not physical, the woman said, shaking her head. It is a sign from the spirit world, a mark that what was once yours is now in their hands. Her voice softened, but her eyes stayed sharp. If you do nothing, you will never bear children. The curse will follow you until you wither away. Blessing clutched her wrapper tighter around her. What can I do? Please. I want my womb back. The prophetess looked at her for a long moment, then said, There is only one way. You must confront him. But first you must pass through cleansing, 3 nights in the sacred stream. If your spirit is strong, you will survive. If it is weak, you may never return. Blessing wiped her cheeks, her voice trembling but firm. I'll go. The prophetess nodded slowly. Then prepare yourself. The journey begins tonight. Outside, the sky was already dimming, and from somewhere deep in the forest came a sound Blessing couldn't place, low, rhythmic, almost like breathing. Something was waiting for her in the dark. By 4 a.m., the village was wrapped in silence, broken only by the croaking of frogs and the soft hum of crickets. The air was cool and damp, and a thin mist clung to the earth like a warning. Blessing stood barefoot outside the prophetess's hut, shivering, not from cold but from the heavy dread sitting in her chest. She wore a plain white wrapper tied above her chest. Beside her stood the prophetess and a younger woman named Enkechi, the prophetess's helper. They carried strange items, a small calabash, a bottle of palm oil, white chalk, a broom woven from palm fronds, and an egg the size of her palm. Do not speak unless I tell you, the prophetess said, her voice flat but commanding. They began the walk into the forest. Each step crunched over fallen leaves, the sound too loud in the stillness. The deeper they went, the colder the air became. Blessing could feel the trees closing in, their branches like fingers reaching toward her. She had never entered a forest at night before. Now every rustle made her heart slam harder against her ribs. Finally, they emerged into a clearing. Before them lay the sacred river Oshamirani. The water was dark, almost black, but it moved in slow, deliberate swells as if it were breathing. The prophetess knelt at the riverbank and whispered ancient words into the air. Suddenly the wind rose, swirling around them. The trees shook. The water began to ripple and swell, though no stone had touched it. Blessing felt a shiver crawl up her spine. This river sees everything, the prophetess said without turning. It knows what happened to you. It knows what was taken. But it can also fight, if your hands are clean. She motioned for Blessing to remove her wrapper. Blessing hesitated, then let the cloth fall, stepping into the icy water. The cold bit into her skin, making her teeth chatter. She waited until the water reached her waist. The prophetess tossed the egg into the river. It floated for a moment before cracking open on its own. Thick, black liquid spilled into the water, swirling around Blessing's legs. The prophetess gasped. It is confirmed. Your womb was buried in darkness. She dipped the palm broom into the river and began sweeping the water in circles around Blessing, chanting words Blessing didn't understand. The pain came suddenly, a burning deep inside her stomach. Blessing doubled over with a cry, her hands clutching her belly. The spirit is angry, the prophetess said, but we must continue. Then, from the water, a voice echoed, low, strange, and cold. She must return the price, or remain cursed. Blessing's eyes widened. What does that mean? The prophetess's face was grim. The man who sold your womb must return the wealth he gained, or the curse will never leave, no matter what else we do. Blessing's knees shook. But I don't even know his real name. The prophetess turned to her. Then you must go back to the one who took you to him. By the time Blessing returned to campus the next afternoon, her body still ached from the ritual, and the echo of the river's voice haunted her. She walked into the hostel slowly, ignoring the curious looks from other girls. Vanessa was sprawled on her bed, scrolling through her phone, but the moment she saw Blessing, she sat up straight. "Blessing, you just disappear like that. I've been looking for you," Vanessa said, forcing a nervous laugh. Blessing didn't respond. She locked the door, then turned to face her roommate. "I need his name," she said flatly. Vanessa blinked. "Whose name?" Blessing stepped closer, her voice low but sharp. "The man you took me to that night. I need his full name." Vanessa's smile faltered. "Why? What do you want to do?" "I'm not asking for explanations," Blessing said, her eyes locked on Vanessa's. "I want his name. Now." Vanessa shook her head quickly. "No, Blessing. That man is not ordinary. He doesn't like people talking about him. The last girl who tried to find him, she went mad." Blessing grabbed Vanessa's shirt and yanked her forward. "If I die from what he did to me, I swear I will come back and drag you into the grave with me." Fear flickered across Vanessa's face. Her lips trembled. She glanced at the locked door, then slowly reached for her handbag. From inside, she pulled out a crumpled piece of paper and a pen. Her hand shook as she wrote. When she was done, she slid the paper across the bed. Blessing picked it up and read the words. Chief Maxwell Omicam. She repeated the name in her head, burning it into her memory. "Is that his real name?" she asked. Vanessa nodded quickly. "Yes, but nobody calls him that in public. In this town, people know him by other names." Blessing folded the paper and tucked it into her pocket. "Then I'll find him." That night, she sat on her bed with her phone, typing his name into every search bar she could think of. Facebook, Instagram, Google. Nothing. No photos, no business listings, no news articles. It was as if the man didn't exist. But she knew better. She could still see his face. She could still smell his cologne. The next morning, she stormed back into Vanessa's room. "Where does he live? Where does he work? Give me something." Vanessa's eyes darted around like a trapped animal's. "Blessing, please, I don't want to die. That man is dangerous. He warned me never to share his location." "My womb is gone," Blessing snapped. "He's already taken everything from me. What else can he do?" Vanessa hesitated, then whispered, "He has a private lodge near Hilltop Estate. Security is tight. No one gets in without an invitation." Blessing didn't reply. She just turned and left the room. The hunt had begun. Blessing borrowed an oversized hoodie from a friend, pulled the hood low over her face and paired it with dark glasses. She packed a small bag, just her phone, a little cash, and a bottle of water, and took a commercial bike toward Hilltop Estate. The ride took her through streets that grew more polished the closer they got. The air smelled faintly of fresh paint and trimmed grass. At the entrance to the estate, tall iron gates opened automatically for a sleek black SUV ahead of them, then shut again with a slow mechanical hiss. The guard post was painted spotless white. This was not a place for ordinary people. Inside the estate, the houses were enormous, multi-story mansions with high fences, tinted windows, and security cameras on every corner. There were no children playing outside, no laughter in the streets, just silence and the occasional hum of a passing car. Blessing asked around quietly. Most people just stared at her like she was lost. Finally, an old woman selling oranges at the edge of the road leaned forward. "If it's the big house with the black Jeep, that's Oduga's place," she said. Blessing frowned. "Oduga?" The woman nodded. "Yes, that's what people call him here. Some say he helped build this estate. Others say he owns it. But strange things happen there. Girls go in and never come out again." A chill ran down Blessing's spine. She thanked the woman and walked toward the house. The mansion loomed ahead, a massive black gate with gold patterns curling across its surface like snakes. Two large security guards stood in front, arms folded, eyes hidden behind dark sunglasses. Blessing stepped forward. "Good afternoon," she said, trying to sound calm. "I want to see Chief Maxwell. Oduga." One guard raised an eyebrow. You get appointment? No, but tell him it's Blessing. He knows me. The other guard chuckled, shaking his head. This is not church, small girl. You don't just walk in here. Please, she said, her voice cracking. It's important. The first guard's face hardened. Go home before we help you disappear. They stepped forward and one pushed her back gently but firmly. The gate didn't open. It didn't even move. Blessing stood there for a moment, her breath shallow, her heart pounding. She had imagined she might catch a glimpse of him, force a conversation, maybe even confront him. Instead, she had been shut out like a beggar. As she turned away, tears burned in her eyes, not because she had failed, but because she knew this was only the first round. The sun dipped lower, throwing long shadows across the estate. Somewhere inside that black gate, the man who had taken everything from her was living without a care. Blessing clenched her fists. If I can't walk in through the gate, I'll find another way. The war had only just begun. That night, Blessing returned to the hostel without a word to anyone. She locked the door, ignored Vanessa's curious glances, and lay on her bed staring at the ceiling fan. It spun lazily above her, its blades clicking softly every few seconds, but her mind was far from the room. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the black gate, the guard's blank stares, the mocking smile on the one who told her to go home. Sleep came late, but when it did, it came heavy. She found herself in a vast, dark room that smelled faintly of smoke and decay. The floor was cold and sticky beneath her bare feet. A single light flickered overhead, revealing a coffin in the middle of the room. Its lid was open. Drawn forward by some invisible force, Blessing peered inside, and her scream echoed into the shadows. The coffin wasn't empty. It was filled with maggots, thick and writhing, their pale bodies twisting over one another, and lying in the middle of them was her own body, her face pale, her lips blue, her eyes wide open and unblinking. A slow, deliberate sound of footsteps approached. She turned. Chief Maxwell stood there, wearing a black wrapper around his waist and red beads across his chest. His gold wristwatch glinted even in the dim light. In one hand, he held a staff carved with strange symbols. His smile was wide, almost gentle, but his eyes were cold. He stepped close, leaning down until his face was inches from hers. She could smell his cologne, sharp and overpowering. I didn't just take your womb, he said softly, his voice like oil on water. I bought your destiny. Blessing's body went cold. She tried to step back, but her legs wouldn't move. His smile widened and he reached out, brushing her cheek with the back of his hand. You can fight me, he said, but by the time you find me again, there will be nothing left of you. The flickering light went out. She woke up screaming. Vanessa bolted upright on her bed. Blessing, what is it? What happened? Blessing didn't answer. She grabbed her Bible from under her pillow and clutched it to her chest, rocking slightly as tears streamed down her face. Her breath came in ragged gasps. I need to go back to her, she whispered. I need to go back to the prophetess. This isn't sickness anymore. This is war. Vanessa's face paled, but she didn't argue. She just watched as Blessing began packing a small bag, her hands shaking but her movements urgent. Far away, in a high-walled compound lit by candlelight, Chief Maxwell sat in a red chair, sipping palm wine. Behind him, an old shrine glowed in the darkness. He lifted a goat horn, poured wine into it, and spoke into the shadows. She's awake, he said with a faint smile. Let her try. By dawn, Blessing was already on the road to a Kuru village. She didn't eat, didn't speak to anyone on the bus, and barely noticed the passing fields and markets. Her mind was locked on the dream, the coffin, the maggots, Chief Maxwell's smile. When she arrived at the prophetess's compound, the air felt different from her last visit. Quieter, colder, as if the ground itself was holding its breath. The prophetess was seated outside on her mat, facing the forest, as though she had been waiting. "You came," the woman said without turning her head. Blessing stepped forward, her voice trembling. "I saw him, in my dream. He said he bought my destiny." The prophetess finally looked at her. "Then, it is time we open the truth." That evening, as the sky turned orange and the first crickets began to sing, the prophetess prepared a ritual. She spread a large goatskin on the ground, its surface marked with strange black lines. 7 red candles were placed in a circle, their flames dancing in the breeze. In the center, she set a small mirror framed in cowrie shells, its glass dusted with powdered charcoal and drops of animal blood. "Sit here," the prophetess instructed, pointing to the mat in front of the mirror. "Do not blink. Whatever you see, do not speak until the mirror goes dark." Blessing swallowed hard and nodded. She sat, her knees pressed together, her hands gripping the edge of her wrapper. The prophetess began to chant, her voice low and rhythmic. At first, the mirror reflected only Blessing's own face, pale in the candlelight. Then the image began to ripple, like water disturbed by wind. Shapes formed. She saw a river, the same sacred river from the ritual. 2 women were leading a naked girl into it. The girl's head was bowed, her shoulders shaking. Blessing's heart skipped. She realized the girl was her. The image shifted. Now she was in the hotel room. The man, Chief Maxwell, offered her juice. She refused. He smiled, then blew a puff of fine white powder into her face. Her vision blurred, and everything went black. Another scene. A small shrine lit by red candles. Maxwell stood there wearing red beads and a black wrapper, a clay pot before him filled with blood. He dipped his fingers in, pulled out a tiny wax figure shaped like a womb, and held it up. "This is my offering," he said. "Give me political power. Take her ability to carry children." He buried the wax womb into the earth beside the shrine. The mirror flashed again. Now she saw herself older, sitting in a doctor's office, tears streaming as the doctor said, "You have no womb." A voice, deep and cold, echoed through the mirror. "Unless he returns what he took, your future will be full of tears." The mirror went dark. Blessing gasped and fell backward, trembling. The prophetess leaned over her. "You saw it?" Blessing's voice shook. "He buried my womb and gave my destiny to the gods." The prophetess helped Blessing sit upright, her hands firm but gentle. The candles around them flickered as if stirred by an unseen breath. The night air felt heavier now, charged with something that made the hair on Blessing's arms stand. "Yes," the prophetess said quietly. "He buried your womb, but that is not all. When he made the offering, he tied your destiny to his request. Every success he enjoys will be fed by what was stolen from you." Blessing's throat tightened. "Can I still get it back?" The prophetess did not answer immediately. She reached for a small gourd, poured a dark liquid into a clay cup, and set it before the flames. Only after a long pause did she speak. "Yes," she said at last, "but only in one of 2 ways." Blessing leaned forward. "Tell me." He must unbury it with his own hands, willingly returning what he stole. Or, her eyes lifted to Blessing's, "His blood must touch the ground where your womb was buried. The blood will break the oath and release you." Blessing's heart pounded. "So I either convince him to give it back, or I make him bleed." The prophetess's gaze was unwavering. "Exactly. But understand this. Men like him do not surrender willingly. He is protected both physically and spiritually. You will not reach him with anger alone. You must be patient and cunning." Blessing's mind raced. Images of the hotel room, the gold watch, his cold smile swirled in her head. The thought of seeing him again made her skin crawl. But the alternative, living the rest of her life barren and bound, was worse. The prophetess took a white chalk and drew a strange pattern on Blessing's palm. "This mark will keep him from seeing your intentions in your eyes when you face him. It will also protect you from some of his shadows. But remember, Protection is not victory. Blessing clenched her marked hand into a fist. Then I must make him bleed. For the first time that night, the prophetess's expression softened, almost like a sad smile. Your path is dangerous. When you strike at a man like him, you strike at the spirits that guard him. You must be ready to fight in both worlds. Blessing nodded. I am ready. But deep inside, she knew readiness was a fragile thing. The idea of walking into his world, of forcing him to pay with his own blood, was terrifying. Still, the image of the wax womb buried in the earth burned in her mind like fire. She stood slowly, her wrapper brushing against the dirt. Tell me where the shrine is, she said. The prophetess shook her head. Not yet. You must first make him fear you. Then he will come to you, or make a mistake that opens the way. Blessing didn't argue. She understood. Fear was a weapon too, and she was about to use it. Night had fallen over the city, wrapping Hilltop Estate in shadows. The streets inside were silent, every mansion lit only by the faint glow of garden lights. Somewhere beyond the tall black and gold gates of the largest house, Chief Maxwell was sipping wine and laughing with his guests, unaware that the war had just come to his doorstep. Blessing moved like a shadow herself, her oversized hoodie pulled low, her breath slow and measured. In her hands, she carried a strip of deep red cloth, the kind used in traditional oaths. She had spent hours tying it into a knot the prophetess had shown her, a knot meant to call a man's attention whether he wanted it or not. When she reached the towering gates, she glanced up at the security cameras. They glinted under the dim light, their lenses sweeping lazily across the driveway. She waited for the guards to disappear into the side post, then moved quickly. Her fingers worked fast, looping the red cloth through the gold grillwork at the center of the gate. She tied the knot tight, then stepped back. With a piece of charcoal, she wrote 4 words in bold, jagged strokes. I want my womb. Her heart pounded, but her hands didn't shake. She stared at the message for a moment, letting the anger inside her settle into something colder, sharper. Then she slipped away into the dark, her footsteps silent on the paved road. Inside the mansion, Chief Maxwell's black Jeep rolled up the driveway just before midnight. The headlights hit the gate, and the red cloth glowed in their beam. The driver slowed, confused. Maxwell, in the back seat, leaned forward. What is that? He asked. The Jeep stopped. Maxwell stepped out, his black loafers clicking softly on the driveway. The night air smelled faintly of wet earth. He walked to the gate and stared at the cloth, reading the words slowly. I want my womb. For a moment there was no expression on his face. Then, a small, knowing smile curved his lips. He reached out, running his fingers over the knot. She's awake, he murmured to himself. One of the guards stepped forward looking uneasy. Sir, do you want us to remove it? Maxwell shook his head, his smile widening. No, leave it. Let it hang there. The guard hesitated. But sir... Leave it, Maxwell repeated, his voice colder now. She wants war? Let her try. He turned and walked back to the Jeep, his gold watch glinting in the dim light. The red cloth swayed gently in the night breeze, a silent challenge between predator and prey. But neither of them believed they were the prey. Far away in her small hostel room, Blessing lay awake, staring at the ceiling. She knew he had seen her message by now. She could almost feel his eyes searching for her in the dark. The first shot had been fired. This was no longer about survival. This was revenge.